Hello, everyone. Welcome to this podcast. Needs a title. It is early-ish in the morning for me, and this is season 3, episode 4. I'm joined by my co-host Isabel Sterling. How you doing, Isabel?
I'm good. I have been up since 5 a.m., so I'm very awake and perky.
Opposite.
Yeah.
Why have you been up since 5 a.m.? That's horrible.
Well, that's because that's when I get my best writing time before the child gets up. And so I'm able to, the alarm goes off at 5. I am typically down in my office by like 5:30 because I got to walk the dogs and give them food. And then they're just very needy. But then I come down and I write. I know and then it's like I feed one and then I come downstairs because the other one will not, if you feed her and she's not ready, she will not eat.
Oh.
So I come, Lily, she's just like, nah. So I come downstairs, I get ready, and then almost inevitably within like 20 minutes, she's like, now I'm ready for breakfast. I'm I just got into a good flow. But yeah, I'm working on the next thing I'm going to send out to the wider world of publishers, and I'm doing some revisions based on some notes from my agent, who is our not so secret guest here.
Oh my God.
And so I'm in that like really beautiful place of I'm just like giddy to get back to working on it. So I might sneak in a little bit of writing later today too. I'm also going to a wedding this weekend. So I'm just like,
that's really fun.
I'm just thinking the other thing that I've got going on is, I think a lot of people don't know, is I also dabble in some indie publishing stuff too. So I actually had a call this weekend with a friend of mine who we have we started back in I think we started a series. We have the prequel novella and book 1 done. Busy with my tried contracts, and we were talking this weekend. We might we're gonna dust it off and try to finish out the trilogy.
What the heck? Is one already out now? Like what?
Yeah, so I do adult indie stuff under the name Charlotte Page. So we have Inked, which is the first book in the series. It's about this woman. She's like a private detective, and she is a demon hunter. And so she has these tattoos on her body that come to life and help her hunt the demons. And it is delightful. So we're going to be working on books 2 and 3 this fall and winter. And then I also released The Trial under Charlotte Page. And that is the book I wrote right before my debut. And I revised it and released it that way, aged it up to adult and released it. Yeah. So I got some bonus books out in the world.
Who are you? I didn't know this about you.
I guess I talk about it sometimes.
This is the first time I've heard of it, which is great. Congratulations, belatedly. Who's the co-author, and when would he like to be on the show?
Oh God, he'd be great. His name on the books is Connor Ashley. He is my bestie from Scotland. He was one of the first writer friends that I made.
I'm sorry, Scotland.
Yes, his
he'll be on the show.
Delightful. Actually, he would be brilliant to have on because he we started writing around-ish the same time. I think he was maybe a year before me, so he was probably 2011. I was 2012 when I started writing. He's got such a brilliant grasp of plotting. So we work together so well as co-writers because basically we brainstorm together, and then he goes and does a very, very detailed outline. And then all I have to do is write it and then kind of edit back and forth. And it's just such a quick process because his writer brain and the best part of my writer brain with the voice and stuff. And it just is so fun. And it's super fun. And he's just also just brilliant to have on in terms of he has transitioned from being a writer to now he basically created his own packaging company, and he's selling books to traditional publishers. He's doing these cool tie-ins with celebrities, drag queens, and it's so much cool shit. But what about you, Erica? What are you up to?
I woke up about an hour ago. Yes, 8:30 is late. I get that. I spent my childhood being up at 5:40 so I could get ready for the bus. That was an hour and a half trip. And I swore I would never wake up before the sun ever again, unless I wanted to. I'm working on honoring that. Actually, it's very easy to honor that. So I commend and fear your energy. I'm good. I'm not awesome. My anxiety is definitely prickling the last 10 days. So much has happened. We said goodbye to one of our other dogs on Tuesday, just maybe 6 days ago. It was time, and she's probably a heck of a lot happier now. And there's a lot happening with both me and my husband taking care of our mental health in tandem. Eye-opening of what he's been going through that hasn't been diagnosed until 4 days ago. And this flood of knowledge and information is overwhelming for both of us. And it's very welcome, but turns out healing from traumas is physically draining. We're recording this with Danielle today, like a week later than we wanted to, because you guys were kind enough to help me reschedule because of having to put Ridley down. And so that was a big help. But I think I asked you to sort of steer the show today. I'll pinch hit from the behind. That's not how you say metaphors of sports, but I'll catch the goal ball. I'm also really kind of itching to let Danielle in. Please tell me about our guest, literary agent Danielle Burby.
Danielle Burby is our guest. She represents a diverse list of critically acclaimed and internationally best-selling authors with stellar voices, incredible storytelling skills, and fresh narratives. She primarily works in YA and middle grade with a smattering of select adult fiction as well. And ultimately, as an agent, she looks to connect deeply with the writing and the themes of the books that she works on. And as I hinted at before, she's actually my agent. And she's also the agent of one of our friends, who's helped kind of get me connected with her. And she's fabulous. And so we should bring her on in and hear from her.
Come on in, Danielle. Danielle, welcome. It's good to see your face.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. The understanding is that you two know each other?
We do. It's about 18 months, I think, or a little more.
Is it really? Yeah. And we met in person at the retreat.
So nice.
Wait, Danielle, have you been Isabel's agent for 18 months, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Time is immaterial now.
I know.
It's done.
So I think before we get into all of the fun things, I think it's always nice to start at the beginning. So like, how did you sort of like get your way into agenting and get where you are now?
I was very lucky in that I grew up on Long Island, so really close to the city. So that made it easier for me to do like the internships and stuff. And when I was doing internships, they didn't have remote as an option. So I was always a fan of books, creative writing and women's studies major, and like taking all the English classes. And I really want to be part of making books. And so I did all the hustling and things that you do to get an internship. And I started interning in publishing right after my freshman year of college, sometimes 2 internships every summer up until I got my first job in publishing. So that was actually really helpful. It helped me kind of narrow down on the fact that I wanted to be an agent, work as a waitress at night and publishing internships during the day. And I just learned so much. And I still am in touch with so many of the people that I worked with then.
I'm curious, what about like agenting? Well, 2 questions. What about agenting in particular was like the thing where you're like, that's the spot for me? And second question, sort of along with that, like, did you, since you were a creative writing major, did you have intentions or hopes of like writing your own books, and kind of, is that still there, or has that gone away now that you're in the agenting world and just all the things?
Agenting is like kind of the more radical direction to take, in that you're working for the author, not for a corporation.
Ooh.
And
hell yeah.
I have always been a fan of authors, and like authors are my heroes. So I wanted to be able to really advocate for them. And it's my job to make sure that they're getting fair contracts and that someone has their back, because as much as your editor cares about you and advocates for you and has your back, they still ultimately are responsible to the corporation that they work for. And I'm responsible to the author.
Did you already have a proclivity for the contracting side, the legal stuff?
No, I did not. That's something that I learned through the process. And I also have lawyers that I work with to make sure that, dot the I's and cross the T's. But yeah, the negotiating was actually probably the scariest part. But, it's actually been really good. I've gotten very good at negotiating. So when I was in college, I wrote a play that ended up being produced, which is really cool. And so I, for a little while when I was first starting out, was kind of juggling writing for theater and did briefly have an agent actually with my publishing career. And I kind of hit a point where I was like, all right, I'm making some money playwriting, but actually it's not going to be a sustainable career. And I need to just really, really devote myself to the publishing side of things. So I set that aside. And I haven't done any of that since. And that was my early 20s. But I do still noodle around with writing. Yeah.
Is it something you're looking to pursue?
Potentially. I mean, I have complicated feelings about it. because publishing is complicated.
Yeah.
And,
Mhm, mhm.
it's something that does feed my soul. You don't go into publishing if you're not someone who
Yeah.
really, really cares about story. And so, yeah, I noodle around a little bit.
As a client of yours, I think it shows that you have a really good grasp with story, because whenever we're going back and forth of like trying to figure out something that I'm stuck on, it's like it's very clear that like you're a really good person to bounce ideas with, because you're like, not everybody has that ability to sort of like, I think there's a difference of like talking about story when it's sort of in a still a conceptual stage versus like, okay, I've read it and now I can sort of see what's working and what's not. And I think you're able to do both, which is really cool.
Oh, thank you. I really care about craft and narrative, and it's,
cool.
it's important to me. Yeah.
As an agent, like at what point were you like, I'm striking out on my own and I'm going to open my own agency?
I mean, in some ways, the fact that I did it when I did it is a little crazy because we had just bought our house, my wife and I, and we were also planning our wedding. And then I was like, and I'm going to start my business.
Just do it all at once.
Let's do it all. It was part like mental health survival, because I had hit a point that so many people I know in publishing hit, where you just talk about burnout. A lot of people that I had started with, especially it was, in the middle of like the pandemic and all of that was going on. And a lot of people were leaving. And a lot of people that I talked to were saying, I don't make very much money. This is a 24/7 kind of job. Like, I'm always thinking about my work. I'm always reading manuscripts. I can't read for pleasure as much anymore, which is the thing that got me into publishing. And I could just get like an administrative assistant job and leave my work at work and get paid a lot more and have benefits and all of that. So I saw a lot of my peers doing that. And I really kind of hit this crossroad where I was like, all right, either I'm going to go do something else. And I feel like I do have to really care about my work. So I was like, all right, maybe I'll start applying to grad school. Maybe I'll be a social worker. Like, this is where I'm really passionate. I am living my dream, but what would make it sustainable for me? And I kind of sat down and I did the math of it, because something that people don't really think about is your agent's not getting, if they work for an agency, they're not getting 15%. That's split between them and the agency. So I was really like sitting down and doing the math and thinking, all right, how would my life change day to day? I'm already working from home. I'm already like, I have this incredible roster of clients who I really am excited about and believe in. Like, really already as an agent, you're functioning in this very like small business, like entrepreneur way. Even if you're working for a bigger agency, you have to be very like driven on your own. You need to be able to really just be a self-starter. I was like, I feel like I'm already doing a lot of the things that I would have to do. I did the math, and the math of it made sense. And I was like, all right, if I'm going to do it, it really actually, I know it seems crazy, and my wife thought I was crazy. And bless her, because we cannot live just off of her salary. She's a nonprofit worker. So best decision I ever made in my entire life. It was just, I'm so happy. I love it. And I'm just over 2 years in with the company, and it's doing so well. I'm really
fun.
Where did the name Mad Woman Literary come from?
I feel like it came from my like English major women's studies kind of roots. Like, of course, I've read like Wide Sargassos and, the Mad Woman in the Attic. And I was reading, and Virginia Woolf is like one of my favorite authors of all time. And I was just like, all right, whenever I need inspiration, I'll just like go read a lot of like Virginia Woolf quotes. And so she had like something Mad Woman related in one of her quotes. And I was like, you know what? The Mad Woman in the Attic. The mission of my agency is for, people who have been misunderstood historically or underrepresented to have the opportunity to speak. And so that's really where the name came from.
For our listeners who want to know how much I vaguely remember about grad school, Wide Sargasso is a sequel someone else wrote to Jane Eyre.
Yeah.
Jane Eyre?
It is Jane Eyre. It's about Bertha,
the wife. Yeah. And the only thing I remember from that thing is just how sad that, I don't know if it's the last line, but it's like everything was all on fire. Okay. It's a short read. It's crazy.
It's a short read. Intense. Poor Bertha is right.
For real. So here, on behalf of all the unagented authors out there so far, When you're reading slush pile stuff, what's that? Oh crap. Yes, I need this, or at least want to see the full or want to see more pages.
I was going to say confidence, but then sometimes that kind of like veers into overconfidence. I have definitely had people send me queries that are a little like, oh boy. So what I mean when I say confidence is someone who clearly knows their stuff. They have a grasp of, language, and that comes across in the query letter, like someone who's done their research. It definitely, I know this is more work for authors, but it definitely does make a difference when someone personalizes their query and I understand why they're querying me. I hate to say it, it does make a difference.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so someone who clearly like they know the format of a query letter, they know what they're doing, they have done their research, and then within the pages themselves also, you can tell pretty quickly when someone has a mastery of voice.
Yeah.
I always take a look at the pages. I use Query Manager, and so usually I will request something after having read a few sentences of the manuscript, not even a whole page. And I'll just be like, yes, these sentences really grabbed me. I've seen things shifting in publishing lately and I know it's so frustrating for authors when agents are closed and then open and closed and open. And I can see why that would be a really frustrating thing. It used to be, especially when I was like coming up in agenting, that you were open all the time.
Yeah.
And then you were drowning all the time because I get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of queries. I request maybe 5% of them. And at this moment, I have 80 full manuscripts waiting for me. And it's a value of mine. It's really, really important to me that I respond to every single person who queries me. And I can't always personalize the responses. Like, yes, I have form emails, but that's, hundreds and hundreds of people. I think that if someone's taken the time to write a query letter and reach out to me and tell me that they would be interested in working with me, they deserve to hear back from me. And so that's why I kind of approach it the way I do, where I really look at my workload, my ability, like emotionally to take that on. And so I am always open to referrals. That doesn't open and close as my query inbox does. Referrals are essentially if one of my clients recommends someone to me, because then I know that they likely know that person, they've interacted with that person. If an editor refers someone to me, which happens, or, any of my colleagues. It happens more rarely because it is much more targeted. To me, that is a sustainable thing to be open all the time for.
Yeah, that's how I actually came in through, because I knew Vanessa.
Yeah.
Yep. I know like there are certain people, like I have one of my clients in particular, I plan to be sending Danielle's way once their manuscript's ready. But that's a little different because it's somebody who has hired me and I'm working with them through their revision. So I know that in a much deeper way than I would just like a friend. But I think like Danielle said, within a couple of sentences if somebody knows how to write or not. You can kind of tell. I think that's part of it. And it also I don't even know if I asked Vivi for a referral or if I just asked her about Danielle and she was like, oh my God, I love her. I'll refer you.
Yeah. And I will say, because this is a very, very, and so much is subjective, right? It's very individual.
Yeah.
Everything about publishing is subjective. I try to respond to all queries within 2 months. And then I try to respond to all full manuscripts within 3 months. So that's my timeline. I have noticed a trend in my inbox recently of people nudging me at the 2-month mark with their manuscript. And I will say that stresses me out. When I get those emails, it just I feel like I have a bodily oh God reaction of oh no, they're waiting for me and I feel bad. And now, nudging is totally fine. Maybe wait 3 months. And I need to be in a more, objective state when I go into my query inbox. I can't be feeling guilty.
The way you describe that, I'm sort of putting my coach hat on a little bit. It sounds very much like a nervous system response. It's like a freeze response kind of, because we are very much socialized to people please and to if our brain thinks somebody might be upset with us or disappointed, that sets off the survival alarm. So it's just that is not a place where you want, when your emotions are high like that and your nervous system is activated, you don't have access to your best thinking.
Right.
And you don't want that to be the place that you're looking at manuscripts.
Right. And I will say because of that, because I know that I need to be in a certain like mental like headspace when I'm reading manuscripts, I don't read any faster or differently when someone does nudge me.
Slight nuance / caveat, when somebody gets an offer from somebody else and they are like, hey, I have an offer. Can you walk us through like what happens with that?
Yes. When you have an offer, then that is the moment to let every other agent who is considering who you either queried, whether they've requested or not. If they have your query, let them know. If they've requested your manuscript, let them know. Ideally, try to give them 2 weeks, but then your query does go to the top of the pile because there's a deadline attached to it. You know, that I try to read as quickly as I can so that I'm not wasting your time. That way, you know, all right, yes, this person is an option. Let me interview them. Or no, you know, let me focus somewhere else. Because typically at that point, you're in a situation where you're interviewing agents. And I know that's very overwhelming. Yeah, it's better to know sooner than later in the 2-week span what you're looking at. Right now, my wife and I both are on this like sapphic romance novel kick.
Woo!
We're building a little library, which is great because then we have a lot of queer friends who then are borrowing the books from us. Yeah.
You must have the Delilah Green books, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I would love to represent some. I feel like as a reader, I have learned so much about them that I now have that. Like it can definitely transfer into agenting. Basically been fun research. I would love to see some sapphic romance in my inbox. And I asked for it when I was open for queries and I didn't get a ton. I find like the whole parent influencer culture really interesting. Mommy blog type of, especially like right now, parents, like, have you seen the trend where parents are cracking an egg on their kids, surprising them with it? Yeah.
Ew,
the kids are like often crying and the
pretty
parents are
traumatic.
laughing and they're posting.
Sorry.
Right. It's like, oh, there's one where the kid is just like joyful that she's getting to bake with her mom. And then her mom cracks the egg on her and you can just see the betrayal on her face.
That's so shitty.
I hate that.
Yeah. And so I'm just really fascinated about what that does to a kid. And so I would be really interested in some like dark novel about either the child of an influencer or someone who's been like impacted by an influencer in that way. Yeah. So I feel like that could be like a cool high concept to start with.
Isabel, do you need to log off and start writing?
I got too many other things to do.
We just saw the light bulb go off over Isabel's head.
No, I just like fully could. I don't know. I don't know. In my brain, it also went murder mystery. So like it just got fun.
Yeah, like a thriller type of thing. Yeah, totally.
Like I said, because I know like a lot of times there's like influence, not a lot of times, thank God, but like occasionally they'll pop up in the news because like kids will get like injured or die. So I'm thinking like the sibling of a kid who died and just like. Yeah, cool.
That's exactly the kind of thing. Yeah.
Somebody write that. I've got too many things.
You've got your next book.
Other things to
Get on
it.
Keep them coming.
Oh
when
my God.
She queried me, I was just like, I went into this stage of just like listening to all of her books on audio. Because that's one of the I can't read on a Kindle because it feels like work. So I have to either do an audiobook or read the physical thing. And I was just like, I need to I just need the next book. And so I didn't have time to buy it, the physical copy. So I was just like listening. I was walking around my house, just like listening to each and every one of her books. Wonderful.
Danielle, how did you know Isabel was going to be one of your ones?
Well, I was very excited when I heard from her because I was already a fan. Yeah. And I hadn't read her 2 more recent ones. And so I was like, all right, I already know I'm going to offer, but now I want to do my research. I want to be prepared when we have our conversation. Like I want her to be impressed. So I just made sure like I was really familiar with her full body of work. And I felt a little like I was doing something wrong in the middle of my workday, like listening to her research.
You write it off.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Isabel, how did you react when she offered?
Well, very excited because I knew that, BB loved you. But then I think for me, the biggest thing was like when we talked, like we just clicked so well. And I loved so much, but it was like how entrepreneurial you were. And just, you're just like, 'cause I really was looking for someone who was like very, like just sort of like sharp business wise. I feel like that's really important. And I love that. I don't know. There's just also something nice to be with like a fellow like queer woman. It's just like, there's I don't know. There's like a understanding kind of, which is just like nice is to have. Typically when you sign with an agent, I've done that 3 times now, you get like the contract and like whatever. But part of what came over too was like a client welcome packet. And it was the separate document, which I was going through and I realized I don't think I ever sent you the client portion of that. What I loved about it was like, here are my values and here's like what I'm committed to. And here's not only like my values in terms of like anti-racism and that kind of stuff, but also just like how I work with you as the client. And it's sort of these different areas. And just to kind of spell out that like you don't intend to hire until you can like pay a generous wage. And like I just like that just made the activist in me so happy. So I just loved like your thought process behind like creating that. And if that was part of your mission when you wanted to strike out on your own anyways, and just would love to hear more about that from your side of it.
It was kind of the culmination of everything that I had been developing as my own personal values as an agent, just observing the industry, hating capitalism, just really trying to articulate who I am. And so, like I had mentioned earlier, that I had hit this point where I was like, okay, either I'm going to double down and commit 100% to publishing, and this is what that looks like, or I'm going to leave publishing and do something else.
Yeah.
And I was really at that crossroads. And that was part of me doubling down and really, really committing to publishing. I was like, if I'm going to commit to publishing, really, really want to live by my values, have those like really at the core of what I'm doing. So I sat down and I just I wrote that document. I was like, how do I want to show up for my clients? I really see it as a partnership. I keep my client list intentionally small and curated so that I can show up as a partner individually to each of my clients. I'm not perfect. So if that's ever something that I'm not doing the way that my client wants me to, then I've made sure to set up, and it's part of the welcome packet, like, come to me. Let's have a conversation. I promise that I will hear you. I'm not going to show up defensively. I really, really this is a relationship, and it's important to me that I show up for you. Yeah. I think it's really important to show up as colleagues, because that's what we are. And I have authority issues. Like, I don't like people being in power over me. And so I don't want to be in power over anyone else either. So it's not, I'm not going to come and have authority over you. We're colleagues. We're in a partnership.
Right. Well, and hierarchy is based in the patriarchy. So it's when we can kind of eliminate that and be on an equal playing field, that's where the magic happens.
Exactly.
So first, you today, what advice would you give to you 5 years ago?
Love this question.
That's a really good
so
question.
much.
I would say it's okay to relax. And trust that, trust yourself, trust that you're going to be okay. I used to just hustle so hard and I worked too hard.
Yeah.
And it's okay to just relax.
Ooh,
that's making me a little emotional. Oh my God.
Yeah. So now we're going to time travel 5 years in the future. What does that version of you have advice for you today?
I think don't be afraid of success.
Ooh, yeah.
I have worked really hard to create a space where I can feel excited and comfortable, and I can, really be there for my clients and be as supportive as possible. And I also want to make sure that I let my agency really just grow into the stratosphere, and that I don't get too comfortable in feeling comfortable, if that makes sense. Yeah, I want to keep taking risks.
Isabel, I want to know the same answers from you. 5 years ago, what would you tell her?
Okay, so in 2018, I was working on my debut and I was super burnt out. I think similar thing of just you can still have a life and finish your books. And also I don't even know how it articulates, but I was so afraid of disappointing my editor, and I was so afraid of like making one little misstep and ruining my career, and just like the it's gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And also like it's allowed to be fun. I made it so serious. I lost the fun for a while there, which is then why coaching like saved it, because it helped me separate and really like we all say like you are not your book, but like to know how to actually pull those apart is like that was super helpful. Do I have to time travel too?
I want to know what 2028 Isabel would.
Oh, I just heard. Yeah, I heard it in my head. Just lean into the fun.
Dang. What I just saw was, hey, you two, congrats on the movie release.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
God.
Bring that in.
Put that in the universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just a slight aside. I've watched the red, white, and royal blue movie. Like I watched it literally 3 times since it came out, because it makes me so happy as a queer person, but also like though there were definitely like some changes from the book to the movie, there always is, but like it was just such a beautiful adaptation where I just like is that like, oh, like that's possible, where somebody like takes your story with such like tender loving care and translates it to a new medium, like that just like giving me chills, like to have somebody do that for my books one day is like, oh, that'd be so cool.
And we need the sapphic representation.
We do.
I know. I'm like, where is my sapphic version of that makes me feel that feel like, oh, I want it.
We can do it.
Is there anything we didn't ask that you wanted to say?
Client books that are coming out?
Yeah, well, I have them lined up right here. 3 that are coming out pretty soon. Actually, 4. Wait, where's the 4th? First is going to be There's No Way I'd Die First by Lisa Springer, which is a horror, like dark comedy horror about a girl. So it's a YA about a girl who is really obsessed with horror, and it's a spinoff of the idea that the Black character always gets murdered first. And she's obsessed with the idea that she would be the final girl standing if she ended up in a horror scenario. And so she throws this party and hires a clown to play basically a game of tag that turns into an actual horror murder situation. And she spends the book, having to survive and be the final girl standing. And there's actually a little romance in it too.
Ooh.
It is so good.
Okay.
And she's having a book launch in Astoria, so I'm going to get to go. Jordan Taylor will be her speaking partner, and her next book is coming out shortly after, so mid-September or maybe early October, The Revenge Game.
The Revenge Game.
Which is basically she basically was like, I need to murder Brock Turner.
Love it.
Yeah. So this is basically a group of girls who realize that the guys at their boarding school are playing a really like sexist, horrible game. And so they decide to turn it around on the guys and reject them in increasingly embarrassing ways. It does end with someone dying.
Thank God.
And then, of course, Vanessa's book.
A Tall Dark Trouble.
Okay, I loved it so much. I weaseled into Vivi's DM. Send me that. I would like to blurb it if it's good, and I know it's going to be good.
She's one of the writers I've read where, with my severe ADHD, it's the writing that doesn't sound like writing. It sounds like a voice. It's so difficult.
You like end up in this like hazy dream where you're
my God,
turning the pages. You're not even aware you're reading a book. Well, I don't know if even Vanessa knows this, but that book is really like the sign that I needed to start my agency, because I was having this, it was a lot of like things aligned where I was trying to sell A Tall Dark Trouble, which was an obvious sell. Like there's no way that book should have been a challenge to sell. But I was having this really long dry spell where no matter like what book it was, I just couldn't sell it. And it was like a 6-month period where I didn't sell a single book, and that just never happens for me. And it was the same time that I was like, I need to start my agency. And the fact that I was having a hard time selling A Tall Dark Trouble, like it just was this energetic thing where I was like, something needs to change. I need to do this. And it was like the final push that I needed, something in the atmosphere that's not letting me sell right now until I make this step. And then it was the first book I sold. Yeah, I was on vacation, actually. I had just started my agency and we had just gone on a new round of submissions with it. And then it was a very competitive situation, and, did quite well as a sale.
It's so fun when like it's sort of like the universe is like when you need to do something and you're like dragging your feet, the universe is sort of like, okay, I'm going to make it even more annoying until you actually do the thing.
A very like heavy-handed like sign from the universe. It was like, come on.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it just felt like a sign. And then the fact that I did sell it and it sold so well and like so quickly after I started my agency, it was just like, you did the right thing.
Yeah. It's in those moments, those professional and even creative moments where it's like, I am literally just the messenger. I'm the puppet for the universe getting this energy out.
Yeah, like big magic style.
Yeah. Right, should we wrap up and find out where listeners can find you?
Yeah. So, I mean, my website, so madwomanliterary.com. I am on what was Twitter. Yeah. So at Danielle Burby. And I need to be better about maintaining it, but I do have a Instagram for the agency. Yeah. So that's where you can find me on the internet.
Danielle, this was amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
I'm glad we did this. It was great. You guys made me feel very comfortable.
Same. Appreciate it. I'm so excited. Wishing you continued awesome success with Mad Women Literary, and you too, Isabel, as a client.
I got big plans, maybe.
Thank you, Danielle.
Yeah, thank you.
And noises.
La 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 la.